Sand hammered the concrete parapet in sheets. A dry, rasping roar that swallowed radio static and turned the world to copper. Captain Elena Markova lay prone behind the rifle, cheek well